A lot of people do carb cleaning videos. What I actually want to show you is a few quick points that will help you become a better carb cleaner. The often overlooked fuel tank causes many issues when it comes to carb cleaning. So what you see here in the bowl is fine sediment, a fine silt of rust that has actually got through the petcock filter, the pre-filter in the tank. So often overlooked on carb cleaning is actually the condition of the tank itself on these vintage machines. Have a look in the tank, make sure everything's fine. So I'm going to clean these carbs, but I cannot guarantee that they'll stay clean for any length of time until the tank is actually addressed. Pay attention to that. It's something that is important. I'm only going to address a few small things. I haven't taken the tops off these carbs. It's unlikely that it's causing any issues. These are Honda carbs. They have an air cutoff valve on the side of each carb that helps on deceleration with the backfiring. We'll call it after firing more correctly. But again, these are all things that we talk about and we do learn. So any good carb cleaner, you got to be careful. A lot of times it's not compatible with rubber. It'll cause some issues. One thing I do find quite often when you do take the bowls off is that the float bowl gaskets themselves actually seem to enlarge. They grow a little bit when they come in contact with the fuel. It's an odd thing. Unfortunately, it's just the case. But what will happen is when you go to put your float bowl gasket back in, it may not fit 100%. When I took this apart, it was bigger, so they will dry up and shrink a bit. Sometimes I'll wash them with soap and water, or I always wash them with soap and water, and then I'll try and put them in some sunlight, and they'll actually shrink back down a little bit. If you don't have time for this, I have successfully been able to just cut the very smallest amount out and use a crazy glue to put the O-ring cross section back together and to be able to use the gasket if you run into a problem where it does grow. Don't be afraid. Just clip a little piece out very carefully with some crazy glue and take care of that. So primary thing is the pilot jet or the slow speed jet. It's often overlooked. People always say they've cleaned it, they've blown air through it. A lot of times you have to get out a carb cleaner, which is really just a gas welding tip cleaner to actually poke through the jet and clear it out. So you're best to be able to remove them. A lot of times this can be difficult. They've been over tightened. They've got stuck in there with time. What I do is take a small amount of heat. Now again, just a safety warning, be careful. There is gas around here, so just aware of your surroundings. But I'll use butane torch, and I'll heat around here. That loosens up that varnish or mung, whatever you describe it as, that reddish or green plaque, if you will, that actually settles into those jets, and you need to open up, understanding that they're quite tiny, like the smallest guitar string, the E string, the very fine string is a lot of times the size of that pilot slow jet, depending on what particular carb set you're working on. But it is important that you get that specific jet out and poke through it. Use your cleaner, use compressed air. My favorite is the rubber tip. Allows you to get right against the jet and give it a proper blow through. Hold it up to the light and make sure that you can actually see through the jet. Just actually leaving it in there and blowing air is not always going to work. It's usually the case when people tell me that the carbs have been cleaned. Proper mechanic going to diagnose for himself so that you know what the trouble is. Don't always take the customer's word for it, especially when it comes to carburetor cleaning. With all due respect, I just listen and agree, because they were cleaned, but they probably weren't properly cleaned. I can tell that just running through a few checks on the bike, difficulty starting. At any rate, that's another topic altogether. and I do tend to ramble on. So specifically, what I want you to learn from this video, couple things. Check the condition of the fuel tank, because that's going to lead to this almost immediately after your carburetors are cleaned. So I'm going to start this bike using a remote fuel tank, my own gas tank, to supply this so that it doesn't block up right away. The customer is on a budget. He's going to have to manage to take care of the tank himself, or this is going to happen again. I'm going to include that information on the work order that I provide the customer, and I'm going to tell him specifically so that there's no confusion. He doesn't come back later on down the road upset that his carbs are plugged again when I just clean them. Arguably, this carbs being just cleaned and plugged again could have caused the blockage, but based on what I found taking these carbs apart, my opinion is that they were never properly cleaned, which I'm going to do here. So I've got some carb cleaner. I use a particular one that I like. It doesn't hurt the rubbers. Other people have their own favorites. I know Suzuki and Yamaha, the OEM carburetor and combustion chamber cleaners, are both quality products. I've used them both. If that's something that's available to you, don't hesitate to pay the little extra money and use that product. They're very good. And I soak the brass parts. You'll see that they turn green. I let them sit overnight, and I'm going to go through and clean everything this morning, put the carbs back together, put them on the bike. So yeah, you're going to look at the fact that this bike uses a fuel mixture screw, which is located on the back half of the carburetor, the front, the back. When it's located towards the rear of the carburetor, it's called a fuel mixture screw. If it's located on the front half in the front, it's an air mixture screw. Your bike will have one or the other. Very seldom do they have two, but it does happen on occasion. I set these at 2 full turns from seated as a benchmark for pilot mixture screw, fuel mixture screw. The 2-turn adjustment is a good place to start for a stock bike. They're probably set a little leaner than that from the factory. The pilots are the next thing that have to be attention given to them. Make sure they're removed. If you need to get some heat on there to warm it up, to loosen things up, push very hard with a good screwdriver that fits well. Just get a little pressure on there. After it's heated, there'll usually be a little clink, clink, and it will release. If you don't do that, you can damage the jet, in which case you may never be able to get it out, and then you are at the mercy of cleaning it in the carb, but it's not ideal. And if that jet is really plugged, it could take additional work. So you're going to get it clean, and then you're going to use your rubber tip. You're going to put it here. You're going to pull the trigger, and that's going to actually shoot some cleaner out the front and the back through the passages, letting you know that they're clear. So that's something that you're going to want to do. I've added a little bit of cleaner to that passageway. We're going to put it on here, and we'll see if we can't see the... So the spray isn't coming out very well, which leads me to believe that this isn't as clean as we would like.